Your tooth has been throbbing for 3 days. There's no dentist. There's no aspirin. There's nothing except the pain, and it isn't going away on its own. For most of human history, this wasn't a rare emergency. It was routine. And the archaeological record shows something most people don't expect. Ancient humans didn't just endure tooth pain. In many cases, they treated it directly, deliberately, and with real skill. The oldest known evidence goes back further than agriculture, further than pottery, further than almost anything we associate with civilization. In 2015, researchers examining a 14,000-year-old skeleton found in northern Italy discovered something startling under a microscope. A molar showed micro-scratches, chipping, and precise cut marks, evidence that someone had deliberately scraped and levered out the decayed material from inside a cavity using a sharp flint tool. This wasn't an accident of wear. It was a targeted procedure, performed on a living patient roughly 14,000 years ago, using nothing but stone. But the most striking evidence comes from a site called Mehrgarh in what is now Pakistan. In 2006, a team of researchers published findings in the journal Nature that reshaped how we think about prehistoric medicine. They had examined 9 skeletons, dating between roughly 7,500 and 9,000 years old, and found 11 molars with holes drilled precisely into them. Not chipped, not cracked, but drilled, with concentric ridges still visible inside the holes, the unmistakable signature of a rotating tool. The researchers believe the ancient dentists used a bow drill, the same basic mechanism used to start fires fitted with a sharp flint tip. When they recreated the technique on isolated human teeth in a lab, it took less than a minute to bore a nearly perfect hole through solid enamel. Nearly perfect. When the images were shown to a modern dentist, his reaction was simply that the holes looked amazing. Here's the detail that changes the whole picture. This wasn't a single desperate experiment. The drilling at Mehrgarh continued as a consistent tradition for roughly 1,500 years. Generation after generation, someone at this site knew how to do this and passed the knowledge on. And the patients weren't a special class, buried in a separate section or a sacred tomb. They were laid to rest among everyone else, suggesting this kind of care was available to ordinary people, not just the privileged few. There's no evidence of anesthesia, no evidence of antiseptic, just a steady hand, a spinning flint point, and a patient willing to sit still through what must have been an extraordinarily painful few minutes. Because the alternative, an untreated infected tooth, was worse. And it wasn't only about drilling away decay. Thousands of years later in ancient Egypt, dentistry took a different direction entirely: replacement. Around 2500 BCE, Egyptian practitioners were creating what are now called dental bridges. Real donor teeth wired into place using gold or silver thread, wound around the neighboring teeth to hold them steady. One well-preserved example, found near Giza, shows 2 teeth joined by a carefully wrapped strand of gold wire, the roots shaped and smoothed to fit. Where patterns on the surrounding teeth suggest it wasn't just decoration for burial, it was worn, used, and lived with. Egypt even gives us the first dentist we can name. A man called Hesi-Re, who served under the pharaoh Djoser around 2600 BCE, held a title that translates roughly to Chief of Dentists and Physicians. He's credited as the first person on record to recognize gum disease as its own distinct problem, separate from the teeth themselves, an idea modern dentistry still treats as fundamental. For pain management specifically, Egyptian medicine turned to pharmacology. The Aber's Papyrus, a medical text dating to around 1550 BCE, contains specific remedies for dental pain and infection, including mouth rinses made from ingredients like celery and bran. It wasn't guesswork passed down as folklore. It was written down, standardized, and repeatable, medicine in a form we'd actually recognize. There's a third tradition worth knowing, one that took a completely different approach. Not drilling, not replacing, but treating the whole body. In ancient China, medical records from the Han Dynasty describe a physician named Chunyu Yi, treating a patient's tooth decay using acupuncture, inserting needles not into the mouth, but into the arm, paired with a daily herbal gargle made from a bitter root infusion. According to the record, the patient recovered within 5 or 6 days. Chunyu Yi attributed the decay to the patient sleeping with his mouth open and failing to rinse after meals, an explanation rooted in a very different medical framework than the one used at Mehrgarh or in Egypt, but arriving at a similar underlying idea. Dental pain was a problem worth diagnosing and treating systematically, not just enduring. Later Chinese physicians went even further. By around the 2nd century, records describe using arsenic-based compounds to numb the nerve inside a decaying tooth, an early crude ancestor of what a modern root canal is trying to achieve. Which brings us back to that throbbing tooth 3 days in. No dentist, no relief in sight. Somewhere in your ancestry, someone faced the exact same problem you're imagining right now. And depending on where and when they lived, they might have sat still while a stranger bored a hole into their molar with a spinning flint bit. They might have had a donor tooth wired into place with gold thread, taken from someone else's jaw or maybe their own. They might have rinsed their mouth with a remedy written down over 3,000 years ago in a language most of us can no longer read. They didn't have anesthesia. They didn't understand bacteria or infection the way we do now. But they understood pain, and they understood that doing nothing wasn't always the safer option. Across thousands of years and completely separate parts of the world, humans kept arriving at the same basic conclusion. Tooth pain wasn't something you simply had to accept. The next time you sit in a dentist's chair, numb, painless, barely thinking about what's happening in your mouth, remember what that same procedure once cost someone else. Not money, but courage.